I'm not super stressed. I'm not super stressed about my crooked vagina. Like even the day that the doctor, she had her head between my legs and she looked up and she was like, "Amy, you take a hard left." It didn't even occur to me to ask her who's left. My vagina is actually like the one part of my body that I don't subject to like the regular criticism. I always kind of felt like, let it be crooked, right? I've never seen a porn where someone says, "Oh, it's so straight." Plus now, every time I go for a pap test, I have this ace of of an icebreaker. You know, I say, FYI, doctor, I go left. I can't think right now who's left, right? We know the joke. I'm also not like shy talking about my vagina. I think that more people probably should even get on the stage and talk about my vagina. But there is a thing about this story that makes me a little bit shy, a little embarrassed, and it's that it outs me as a woman who continues to participate in the relentless kind of bureaucracy that governs the shape of a woman. Like that this story is actually, it's an intersection of the parts. The part of me that is an unwavering protector of a woman's right or her obligation even to take up space, and the part of me that just compulsively does squats just to stay relevant. But that's kind of the trade-off, right? Because if I want to get on stage and talk about my sweet crooked pussy, but it's just attached to all this other stuff, like literally. One day, when in my late 20s, I woke up and none of my clothes fit anymore. That is the whole story. That's like the whole thing is about a 27-year-old who gains an undetermined amount of weight. Okay, that's what you're here. This is what's going to happen. And it's undetermined. The reason it's an undetermined amount of weight is because about 10 years ago, I haven't weighed myself in a decade. Because when I was 19, I could see that I was fixating on these numbers, and so as a way to control the obsession, I decided to get rid of the numbers altogether. But obviously, obsession, it adapts. It's clever that way, and it develops a resistance to even the most body-positive cereal commercials. The internet refers to the time in your late 20s when you wake up and none of your clothes fit. The internet calls it second puberty. You heard about it? Have you heard? It's not my joke, but I have to, yeah. Which I like, though. I like that a lot. And all my older friends, when I hit second puberty, all my older friends were like, Amy, like, they were very reassuring. And they're like, Amy, this is just happens. It happens to all of us. It's just growing up. We all went through it. It happens to everyone. And I said, not to vegans. Because I have been a vegan since January 2010, and that is the exact time when I realized that veganism is a glaze of morality that you can put around an eating disorder. But that since then, I have found out that the animal industry has been it's the number one cause of global warming, and so this whole time my eating disorder has been saving the planet. I've been started exercising when I was about 14. Most days, almost every day, sometimes twice a day. But usually, for a long time, I was always exercising in the kinds of like cozy establishments that they'd have like Sanskrit on the wall, and it'd say like, "May all beings be happy and free." But after second puberty, there's no more Sanskrit for you. Like the beings have to go to the other gym where the walls say, "Summer bodies are made in winter." There was another one that said, "Tomorrow is today." I guess just the disciples of fitness, they're in the process of constructing their own religious calendar. And I took a look at it, and the gist of it is that Sunday is cheat day. And then every other day is like pretty much like Ramadan. My diet at the time was basically, it was just a list of food that I found on the internet that Gwyneth Paltrow said I could eat. It's a short list. And I was going to the doctor all the time. She was so sick of me because I would go to her with a new diagnosis, and I'd force her to test me for hypothyroidism and diabetes and hormonal problem, all trying to figure out, like, why don't my clothes fit, doctor? And she eventually got very frustrated, and she said, "Amy, what you really need is to make positive choices for yourself." And I said, "Doctor, I hear you, and I'm sorry for taking up your emergency time slot. But if you could just give me the referral to the tropical disease unit at Toronto General, there is a parasitic infection that just has my name written all over it, and I'm not going to begrudge you for not diagnosing me sooner." I obviously, guys, was taking tons of probiotics, enzymes before I ate, and supplementing everything that you could supplement. But still, the only thing that really fit me was my duvet. So logically, I thought, it's just the problem is Western medicine. And I need to wean myself off, which I did, wean myself off of all the antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication that I've been taking for like a decade. And that had results, though. The result was that my best friend stopped talking to me because she said that my obsession with my body made it impossible for her to like keep the peace with hers. But I didn't. The one thing it didn't do was magically transfer me back into my former body, which it might be worth noting that I also had a tormented relationship with. But that was the new goal. That was to inhabit my former enemy. And I was running out of things, so I had to take stock yet again of like what else about me could I possibly dismantle. And eventually you have to go inside, right? You have to go deep inside and realize that it must be your IUD. Do you know what? You seem like you know. It's a birth control that is implanted in your uterus, and so this brings us back full circle. Because remember, right off the top, lots of vagina talk. A little break for a while. Here we are. We're back in my comfort zone, which apparently involves my feet being in stirrups. So my feet were in stirrups. And I was at the hospital, and I had the female teaching doctor, she was over on my right, and then between my legs, I had this fresh male resident who was so excited to do his first IUD extraction. And I was rooting for him, but I could see that he was nervous though too. So and I felt like, well, he was having a hard time with the speculum. It's like, well, there's one thing I can do here, and it was say, you know, doctor, I go left. Just can't, for the life of me, remember who's left. And I'm not the kind of performer who's going to like begrudge a quiet audience. It's fine. He doesn't want to laugh at my joke. Okay. However, he was still struggling, and he was getting really frustrated. And it was to the point where the teaching doctor she kept threatening to step in. So I guess that the resident, he must have been embarrassed, you know, and he was getting defensive, which is probably why he started to heckle me. He said, "It's so crooked. I've never seen a vagina this crooked. Like, how do you even, I don't get, like, you come look at this, though. Because I don't know how anyone gets anything done with this thing. This certainly couldn't be my fault, because I'm basically a hero just for surviving and not becoming another anonymous pile of bones lining the walls of these human catacombs." That's what he said. And maybe, okay, what I could have said was like, "Hey, doctor, just so you know, like, this is my one thing that I have. But kind of by accident, at some point during my life, I accidentally acquired a healthy attitude towards this one part of my body that you're like throwing under the bus right now. So if you could maybe not do that, and just to like give you context, there are parts of me that I can only identify by the cream that I apply there. So this like crooked vagina is actually, it's like the one part of me that I have that I'm not like actively trying to erase or like minimize or reduce. So I feel like it's kind of rude of you to say that about me. But I didn't do that. I didn't say that. What I did do was continue to pretend to text. All of the people in my life that weren't currently talking to me. I didn't, and then and while I was texting the teaching doctor, she tapped him out, and then she got the speculum in place. She got everything under control, and she let the resident finish the extraction of the IUD. And when he got it out, he asked me if I wanted to see it, and I said no. Yeah. And he dangled it in front of me by the strings, and it was surprisingly small. And also surprisingly not the source of all my problems. Which is inconvenient because these stories about like the body, like they work better if there's stories of triumph. Like if the me in this story realizes that she's like beautiful just the way she is. Alternatively, if she accepts that the value of beauty is grossly inflated, that it's in fact a very small idea that just gets a ton of press. And I'm open to either of those things happening for me in the future. It looks like there's going to be thousands of dollars of CBT in between now and then. I'm on the road, though. will say this, though. I will say this one thing that I did learn is, that in my experience, the thing that is most effective at treating our body image problems is a healthy dose of nihilism. Also, though, bigger clothes. That helps. Anyway, thanks so much. Let's bring Laura Louise back here onto the stage.